What if I told you the person who hurt you the most still remembers everything they did to you? Every word, every moment, every wound they caused. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But what he didn't say is the part that truly matters, the part that exposes a chilling truth about those who never admit they were wrong. By the end of this, you'll finally understand why they sleep peacefully while you're wide awake, reliving the betrayal over and over again. So let's start with the truth, the kind that will send chills down your spine. They remember everything. That person who broke your trust, the one who made you question your own sanity, they haven't forgotten, not even a little. They remember the promises they made and broke. They remember the tears in your eyes and the silence that followed your heartbreak. They watched you fall apart, and they remember. Carl Jung, through his work, uncovered something critical: the shadow self. This is the part of us we try to hide. The selfishness, the anger, the denial, the guilt. The more we suppress this shadow, the more powerful and toxic it becomes. But here's the twist. People who hurt you aren't suffering from forgetfulness. They're suffering from a far more calculated condition, what Jung called shadow projection. Instead of dealing with their own darkness, they throw it onto you. They can't face their guilt, so they convince themselves you deserved what happened. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what happens when one person refuses to transform? What happens when they choose comfort over consciousness? They don't just forget. They deliberately choose not to remember, because to remember would mean facing who they really are, and to face that would mean change. And for them, change is terrifying." Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But these people aren't interested in that kind of self-awareness. They're addicted to something else, comfort, ego, protection. And they'll mask their denial with lines like, 'I don't remember it that way,' or 'You're just too sensitive.' What Jung discovered is that the psyche will go to extraordinary lengths to protect the image it has of itself. He called this false self the persona, the mask we wear to hide from others and from ourselves. When someone hurts you and acts like nothing happened, it's not because they forgot. It's because acknowledging it would require them to step outside their illusion, and they're not ready or willing to do that. Jung described this illusion as the provisional life, a state where people choose to stay comfortable, unaware and unaccountable, rather than face their truth. They'd rather live half a life than risk confronting their darkness. He said, "What you resist persists." And here's where it gets darker. These people have learned how to make their resistance feel like your fault. When they hurt you and pretend it didn't happen, they destabilize your reality. You start to question yourself. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe it really wasn't that serious. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Stop right there. This isn't forgetfulness. It's a psychological tactic. According to Jung's theory of projection, when someone is faced with the need for accountability, they don't respond with remorse, they respond with deflection. They don't take responsibility, they transfer it, they don't acknowledge the wound. They make you wonder if it even exists. This is more than denial. It's gaslighting, the intentional distortion of your reality to protect theirs. Jung believed the greatest privilege of life is to become who you truly are. But some people have discovered a more convenient privilege, to avoid becoming anyone at all, and they use silence to do it. Their silence isn't just absence, it's a weapon. When someone hurts you and then disappears, that silence is not passive. It's calculated. Jung understood that when someone goes silent, it shifts the burden of explanation to you. You start talking more. You over-explain. You replay moments. You search for closure they'll never give. You analyze texts, reread messages, examine the tone in their voice, hoping to find a hint of regret, but you won't. Not because they don't feel it, but because they refuse to face it. Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." But these people don't look inside. They build their identity by projecting their unhealed guilt onto you, then walking away untouched. This silence, it creates dependency. Jung found that when people withhold the acknowledgement you deserve, it makes you more desperate to receive it. That desperation shifts power, and they know it. Suddenly, you find yourself backing down, softening your truth, just to hear anything from them. You feel grateful for the bare minimum. A reply, a nod, a breadcrumb of attention. But it's a trap. Jung's work with the collective unconscious revealed universal archetypes. One of them is the innocent, the part of the psyche that refuses to believe it can do harm. Some people don't just visit this place occasionally. They live there. They build their entire identity around never being the villain. That's why they'll never apologize. They truly believe they've done nothing wrong. Jung discovered something even more dangerous: psychological inflation. This is when the ego becomes so inflated, so fragile, it can't handle anything that contradicts its self-image. To them, your pain is a threat, not a reality. Your truth is an inconvenience, not an invitation to heal. And when you ask for accountability, you're not just asking for words. You're asking them to dismantle their entire identity. And that they cannot do, Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious. It will direct your life and you will call it fate. These people haven't made their unconscious conscious, they've weaponized it. They've mastered emotional manipulation without even realizing it. Their mind has separated their actions from their identity. They believe they didn't hurt you. They believe you made them do it. Jung studied psychological complexes, patterns of emotion and thought that live outside conscious awareness. People who avoid responsibility live in this state permanently. They believe their own lies. They see themselves as the victim, even when they're the one who caused the damage. Jung warned, the most dangerous thing is to live in a world of projections. These individuals live in a world where they're always right, always misunderstood, always the hero of their story. They don't process guilt. They fear it. But Jung also taught that guilt, when processed, becomes guidance. It says, you hurt someone, make it right. That's the moral compass of a conscious mind. But those who lack emotional maturity, they see guilt as poison and not a path to healing. He said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. These people refuse to do that work, so instead, they make you carry their darkness. You hold their shame. You suffer while they feel justified. When you ask for acknowledgement from someone who's built their entire personality around avoiding responsibility, you're not just asking for honesty. You're asking them to tear down the very walls that keep their fragile identity intact. They can't hear your pain as truth. They hear it as an accusation. Your vulnerability becomes their weapon. Jung understood this. Not everyone reaches the same emotional level. Some people grow old without ever growing up. You may never get the apology, not because you don't deserve it, but because they aren't capable of giving it. Real apologies require integration, the ability to hold two truths. I meant well and I caused harm. Most people can't do that. But here's the most freeing truth Jung uncovered. You can't wake up someone who is committed to staying asleep. You can't love someone into maturity. You can't force anyone to become conscious if they're determined to stay blind. And the most powerful act of self-love? Letting them go. Not because they're right, but because they've reached their limit. And you're done shrinking to fit inside it. Thank you for staying with me. If this resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. You never know who else needs to hear this truth.